Hey, this is ThinkerThunker. I'm sure you've seen this clip. It's from a beautiful film called Great North, filmed back in 2001, way up in the Arctic. Breathtaking footage. Do yourself a favor, go check it out on Amazon or Hulu, among other places. But this one 30-second shot really captured the world's imagination. You know, the thought of an actual film crew with a multi-million-dollar production accidentally filming a Bigfoot. And then what's even crazier, the guy who was behind the camera that day didn't know about all this until 15 years later when a buddy of his sent him a link to my video. So we started talking, and now, after 15 years of us all guessing and speculating what exactly it is we're seeing here in this footage, we've got the multi-talented director, cinematographer here himself to tell us exactly what it was. Or at least exactly what it wasn't. Stick around. And just a quick introduction for Mr. Reeve. Here I am at imdb.com, and I've searched for The Great North, and we can see film back in, or released back in 2001. And down here under directors, we see William Reeve, and if I click on his name, now we go to his page. Here's a picture of Mr. Reeves, got one of his old hats on, which I believe is a bit of a trademark for him. And we see him credited as being a cinematographer, camera department, director. Down here we can see some of the other films he was famous for. And his filmography, looks like he was starting in business back in about 81. He has a very impressive body of work. And up here we can see some pictures of him, and he literally, this is him here in the center. This is a diving rig. His work is taking him from the bottom of the ocean all around the world. Here he is looking burly, manhandling this monster rig. Here he is again here, and he is an expert in lenses and film stock and light meters and machining and getting cameras where no camera has ever been before. And here he is next to the helicopter rig. And this guy is the real deal. He is an action adventure cinematographer. And here he is 15 years later.
In the high north of Quebec, Thinker asks, were there strangers milling about in the middle of nowhere? Absolutely not. There were no strangers for hundreds of miles of where we were, and it was only us and a very small crew. We had a skeleton crew of only 9 people, and we used 2 helicopters to sometimes reposition the herds, being very careful to avoid stressing the animals. He also asked, were there ever more than one cinematographer filming on the ground at one time? And I would have to say there were possibly not in this shot, but we did have days where we had 2 cameras going, but absolutely there was no one on camera except for myself at the riverside, and we were the entire crew were on the riverside of the camera riverside of the shoot. And I really had to laugh when he said, or that some crew member was out there running around spooking the herd or riding a 4-wheeler through the shot. Well, there were no 4-wheelers, there were no bicycles, there was no one on foot. And anyone that got into the shot that was a crew member would have to buy the beers that night. So that's just bad protocol. There's absolutely no way that we would put a human being in that kind of world or that peril.
So there you have it. They did not have guys on bikes or 4-wheelers wearing backpacks out driving or filming the herd. They had 2 helicopters for that. And he made light at one point by saying if one of the crew members had spoiled the shot, they would be buying beer that night. But then he went on to clarify by saying they would never put someone out there from the crew like that in harm's way. And then he also made the point that nobody on his crew crossed that river, and that there were no spectators for hundreds of miles. And also, they never saw bears anywhere during this shoot. And if they had, the bears would have surely become part of the story. After all, this was a nature film.
ThinkerThunker tells me that the majority of people think that this is a bear, a grizzly bear or a black bear giving chase, and I disagree. First of all, they're in their northern limit of their range, although there could possibly have been a grizzly or a black bear there, but we did not see any bears in our experience there. Furthermore, if a bear were giving chase, it would be running on all four paws and in a more horizontal position. And this object that we're seeing is more upright and appearing to be running on two legs and not four paws giving chase. So I think that that's pretty much proof that this was not a bear. We certainly did not see any bears at that moment in time, and we never saw a bear while we were in that location. There you go.
So that's it. It wasn't a crew member, it wasn't a bystander, and it wasn't a bear. And they were hundreds of miles from nowhere. So what would possibly be running in an upright position out in the middle of a migrating herd of caribou in the Arctic? And they don't have polar gorillas up there. So we can't prove what it was, but at least we now know what it wasn't. It wasn't a human, it wasn't a bear, wasn't a spectator, and something else very bizarre about this shot, it wasn't alone. And so here we are. I've scaled this up like 2,000%, so it looks a little rough. But look at that. Does that even look like a bear? That is a humanoid shape. And besides, bears don't sprint on two legs. They can toddle on two legs, but they don't move that fast. And also, their arms, when they're on two legs, they kind of hold them out in front of them. And these arms appear to be much longer and down low. It's not a bear. It also looks nothing like a classic Bigfoot, but where is it written that every single Bigfoot must have the exact same shape and build, or be the same age? For all we know, this could be a gangly 12-year-old Bigfoot who got in trouble when he got home for running with a herd. I'm making a joke here, but you get my point. And this is up near the North Pole. Maybe a different strand exists up there, you know? We don't all look the same. Dogs don't all look the same. Why should they? Okay, so now on to why would its arms be out here like this? Well, have you ever seen a chimp or gorilla running or at least hurrying on two legs? They don't churn their arms at the elbow the way we do. They just don't. So, you know, maybe something 500 pounds or more would do the same as chimps and gorillas. Maybe it keeps its arms down and low for balance. It's as simple as that. Okay, so now on to it possibly not being alone. Watch right here. See that light shape appear? And then I go next frame, and the light shape goes higher, and we begin to see a little mass up here around its back. Next frame, the mass gets bigger, and off they go together. So now I'll just speculate. I'll tell you what I see or what makes sense to me. If I scrub back and forth between two frames, this appears to be an elbow, you know, an arm bending at the middle, and this light shape is a hand. And now why would its hand be light? Well, the palm of my hand is lighter than the rest of my skin. Maybe its palm is as well. And so then we go next frame and we see his forearm coming up, his or hers forearm coming up. So it's as though it's helping something up on its back, because in this frame we begin to see something up here, and I go next frame, and now we really see the mass on its back getting bigger. So again, I'll just scrub back and forth, so watch. It appears to help something up on its back. What that something might be, I don't know. It could possibly be a young one. But as far as being a backpack on what we now know is as an imaginary crew member, look, no backpack, backpack. No backpack, backpack. So it isn't there, and then it is. So it would have to be a magic backpack on an imaginary crew member. It's hard to say. Okay, so now I'm going to leave you with the full interview so you can watch and see how earnest and how sincere this man is. And you'll hear Mr. Reeve mention that some health issues sidelined him for a bit. And I hope Mr. Reeve doesn't mind, but I'm going to put his email up for anyone who would like to send him a little PayPal support to say thank you for coming forward and clearing this up for us all. Please join me in doing that, because this wasn't just some guy who shot a few seconds of blurry footage and then we never heard from him again. Mr. Reeve is a serious professional with some impressive credentials. So for him to speak up on this matter means a great deal to me. And now that he's done so, now that we know this was not a crew member, a bear, or some spectator or fan who jumped in the shot, that's major. That makes this footage a big piece of this whole puzzle. There's something else out there, something on two legs. Oh, also I wanted to say, get on over to his YouTube channel and subscribe. I'll put that link up. Let him know you appreciate him coming forward, and watch for any videos he might have coming out, and maybe in the future he'll talk more about this. Give him a reason to. So there you go, guys. That's all I've got. Thank you so much for watching. This was major for me and a first. I've never done an interview before, but I am thrilled that it was for this story and with Mr. Reeve. And if you've got a great story or some amazing footage, message me. We'll go from there. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, everyone. I'm William Reeve, and I'm here to answer the questions from ThinkerThunker about the IMAX Great North Bigfoot scene. I'm going to try and make this 10 minutes, so I'm going to race through this by reciting my notes. Okay, here we go. ThinkerThunker asks, tell us a little bit about you and your cinematography career. Any projects coming up we should watch for? And also tell us about the Great North shoot. What was it like filming in those remote locations? Well, my career's been really fantastic. I've been everywhere on planet Earth. I've had 20 deep ocean dives in the mid-Atlantic and mid-Pacific Ridge, in the underwater volcanoes. I've been on the wreck of the Titanic. I've 30 hours of bottom time on the Titanic, including a picnic lunch on the bridge, and also getting stuck in the engine room, cylinder number 2 for an hour, which was kind of scary. And I was one of the first of 3 humans to set eyes upon the wreck of the German battleship Bismarck, which my father was on the Norfolk that shot the bridge off the Bismarck before it sank into 3.3 miles deep during the Second World War. And so I have 30 hours of bottom time of photo on that wreck. And also I've been all over creation, the sub-Antarctic, the Arctic, Patagonia, the Galapagos, Australia, and the outback, New Zealand, Borneo, Thailand, Africa, all over. I also had a ride in the F-15 Strike Eagle at Nellis Air Force Test Range, and when we were suiting up for that, the public affairs officer was standing near us, and I said, when I was getting suited up, he came over and pulled a little plastic bag out of my leggings and stuck it in here in the bib of my flight suit, and he said, "There you go, Billy. When you go to throw up, this bag's going to be right there for you." And I said, "Oh, come on, how many people throw up in their first ride in an F-15 Strike Eagle?" And he said, "Well, 1 in 10. I said, well, that's not too bad. He said, 9 throw up and the other one survives. So there I am, I'm in the club. So what's coming down the road? There's not much more in the future because I'm presently retired, mostly because of health issues and some big changes in the industry, and so I've retired myself. The Great North, the movie, a long time ago, was a fantastic experience, and I learned how to build an igloo with the aid of the principal actor, Adami, the Inuit, and we also went mussel fishing under the ice, the pack ice on the shore in the village that we were at, where the sea was lapping at us under this huge canopy of ice, and while the tide was out. That was quite an interesting experience because you're underneath thousands of tons of ice and with the sea just getting ready to swallow you. So anyway, okay, on to the Bigfoot River. In the high north of Quebec, Thinker asks, were there strangers milling about in the middle of nowhere? Absolutely not. There were no strangers for hundreds of miles of where we were, and it was only us and a very small crew. We had a skeleton crew of only 9 people, and we used 2 helicopters to sometimes reposition the herds, being very careful to avoid stressing the animals. He also asked, were there ever more than one cinematographer filming on the ground at one time? And I would have to say there were possibly not in this shot, but we did have days where we had 2 cameras going, but absolutely there was no one on camera except for myself at the riverside. And we were the entire crew were on the riverside of the camera, riverside of the shoot. And I really had to laugh when he said, or that some crew member was out there running around spooking the herd or riding a 4-wheeler through the shot. Well, there were no 4-wheelers, there were no bicycles, there was no one on foot, and anyone that got into the shot that was a crew member would have to buy the beers that night. So that's just bad protocol. There's absolutely no way that we would put a human being in that kind of world or that peril with 400 caribou rushing through his person. On the shot, would a film production risk the life of crew members like that, putting them out in the middle of the stampeding herd? Well, of course not. Safety is #1 concern. In any documentary movie, we had our share of close calls, I can tell you that much, in many, many different productions. Why did you not stop the shot when a bear or Bigfoot or whatever ran through the shot? Or would you have noticed looking through the viewfinder? Or not noticed? Or are you generally just too busy on shots like this? So here's my answer. The viewfinder image is adequate, but low quality compared to most of today's digital cameras. The IMAX film negative, however, is 10 times the volume of information than conventional cinema. We look at low-resolution video images to check shots. Seeing this event could have been missed right through the editing process and never shown up on the release until it was viewed in an IMAX theater. If anyone did see it in a pre-release, or did see a Bigfoot or anything anomaly like that, they would have just had to let it go into the distribution, because there would be no way of redoing that shot. It's a documentary science movie and not a science fiction action film. So, was it you that filmed the Bigfoot shot? If not, could you interview the whoever it was? Well, we're interviewing whoever it was, because it was me. Yes, it was me that was behind the camera. My camera assistant and dear friend remembers the setup, and he reminded me that he had some photos of the location. So, and when he sent me the link to this video, which I didn't know existed until a few months ago, I was totally blown away at the fact that I had, first of all, I've been fascinated with the Bigfoot phenomenon all my life, and I never dreamed that I would ever have a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot running through one of the images that I was photographing. That was really remarkable. And so I have to say, listen, non-believers, it's really so simple. There are apes, monkeys, many different types of bipedal animals in this world. And just because a species chooses to be elusive and antisocial with human beings, it doesn't mean that they don't exist. Look at the statistics on a global scale. They all choose to hide to protect themselves from extinction. It's simple enough, believe it or not. Me, I choose to believe that they exist because it all makes sense. It's a complex world of nature and evolution that we live in, and we're not so privileged to be alone and carrying our offspring on piggyback like we do when our kids are young. Think about it, guys. Did you all see or hear any other funny things on this or any other shoot? Well, man, I have a book full of weirdness in my career. And there's not enough storage on my iPhone to get into all that. But I have to say one thing, that the Bigfoot, the Bigfoot takes the cake, really. Tell us what you think it was, and what it might have been doing there. So, and do you think there was a young one on its back, or any other thing you want to tell us? Okay, I'm going to read this. I've studied the video at great length. Not only do I see the Bigfoot in the foreground with a youngster on his or her back along for the ride, I also see a trio of Bigfoots hunting and coordinating an ambush. Now here's the technique of that. If you read my notes on YouTube, YouTube site, I see vertical movement on two other black objects opposing the camera lens movement from left to right. One is off to the right and midway up the hill. It's dark and black. It also moves upward while the camera is panning. This action can only be recorded if there is something creating the action, and definitely it's not human or a crew member. So the camera's panning, and we can see that there's actual movement in the frames in two places. It appears to be getting a better view and exposing itself in the process. There's a third dark object in the distance, high up the hill in the center frame of the shot, doing exactly the same movement, only it's very faint due to the resolve. It's faintly resolved due to its proximity to the camera position. I believe that the Bigfoot in the foreground was cutting out a small group to head them into the small group of caribou to head them into the clutches of the two up the hill. They probably had to hunker down until we moved away to the next location. Why? Because being seen would have been contrary to their remarkable ability to avoid contact with humans. That, believers and non-believers alike, is my theory, and I'm sticking to it. And I'm thrilled to be going to my grave having claimed to be the first crew to film Bigfoot in IMAX. Yeehaw! So I welcome your comments. And non-believers, I ask only one thing: be polite, okay? Cheers. Thanks a lot for listening. Take care. Bye.